So a few days ago, I wrote a blog post about the Americans for Prosperity ad and Ray Hall's war on coal. I went off on a rant, and yeah, it needed to be said, but there's some other things that need to be said. Uh, One of the main things I kind of glossed over because I was mad. I mean, on that one, I was really mad, and I still am pretty mad about it. But now that my brain has unlocked and I've thought about it, the woman in the ad was bringing across the point of view that the war on coal is a war on working family, and how Ray Hall and everybody else has failed West Virginians and sold out the state. That's why we need to elect Evan Jenkins. Well, Ray Hall and them, as I pointed out in the blog post, they did not sell out West Virginia. And they're not waging a war against coal. What Ray Hall and everybody is doing is they're trying to protect people here. They're trying to do what is best for the people that live in West Virginia. They're trying to do what's best for the majority of people in this country, and moving away from coal is that. But she was really quick to throw out that this war on coal is a war on the working families of the state. No. What the Americans for Prosperity won't tell you is the real war. See, what they're trying to do is move the goalposts, more or less, but really I call it a bait and switch. If you watch boxing, it's a rope-a-dope. They're suckering you in. They show you this woman. They never show you the husband or the kids except for pictures. And basically what they're doing is they're suckering you in. I mean, they're just pulling at heartstrings. Here you have this woman. Oh, my husband's been laid off 3 times in 6 years. You know, I know a lot of people that have been laid off a lot more than 3 times in 6 years. I've watched people work for 2-3 weeks and get laid off. I know a guy that went over the road and worked for a month and got laid off. I worked for a week, and I took a job working security. I worked a week and got laid off. A week. That's when you know it's bad. The job I had working security, I got laid off 3 times in 3 years. I finally left that job about the time that I was graduating from college because $7.25 an hour just don't pay the bills anymore. Actually, no. I spent 3 years working as I basically spent 3 years as a regular office security officer, and the rest of my time at that company as a supervisor, which I made $8.15. Sorry, you can't fire me now for discussing how crappy you pay. Can you? You can blackball me, but whatever. The war that they're trying to distract you from is not the war on coal. The war on the working families is people like that employer paying people that much money. The war on the working families in coal That was when you were paid in company scripts, and these scripts were only good at the company store. Hey, I seem to remember a song about that. Hold on here a minute. Oh, yeah, wait a minute here. Let's see. Yeah, Tennessee Ford, 16 tons. Yeah, he sold his soul to the company store. Yep. He says here, you load 16 tons, what do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. Yep. So, yeah, that basically, if you're carrying 16 tons by Tennessee Ford, is talking about a coal miner who basically says, I can't die because I owe my soul to the company store. Alright? But on the flip side to that, that's the real war on the working families in this state. They work. Now, they don't pay in company scripts now, but, I mean, they do pretty good. I mean, I knew a site boss that was making $2,300 a week before taxes. Man, I wish he would have accepted my offer to trade paychecks for a week or two. But these guys make pretty decent money. Alright. But the fact of the matter is, they earn, and while they do earn every bit of that paycheck, the problem is that Ray Hall and everybody else in Washington is supposed to be looking out for everybody's best interests, not just mine, not just yours, not just their home states. Sure, they're supposed to try to do more for their home state, but at some point you have to realize not everybody believes the same things you do. They have opinions, and they have the right to express said opinions. I also have the right to call you out on bullshit. And this Americans for Prosperity ad is nothing more than propaganda bullshit brought to you by the companies that polluted our home. Hey, while I'm still here, West Virginia is my home. Americans for Prosperity are trying to give more power to companies like Freedom Industries to pollute the water. They're trying to give more rights to Bluestone Industries to do more mountaintop removal. They're trying to give rights to Massey or Alpha Resources to send more people in underground mines to die. And speaking of which, those men would not have died in Upper Big Branch if they had followed proper safety protocol. Sure, there would have been 3 dead people, 3 dead miners. That would have been the site boss, likely, and the fire boss, and an assistant, maybe. If they had followed the rules and regulations, the men would have cleared out of the mine. The fire boss, at least the fire boss, would have went in, and he would have been the one in the mine when it went. Instead, you had people going out, people coming in, and the fire boss doing his job. And that's a no-no. It was when I was working on coal mines. You have companies like Freedom Industries and U.S. Steel. Yeah, I had to look that up. I'm sorry, I forgot who ran that coal plant. Wow, it's abandoned. I didn't know that. But you have companies like U.S. Steel that pollute the air, they pollute the water, and they pollute, well, just about everything. I mean, hell, they even pollute your body. Chewing coal dust, even breathing it, is very bad for you. And that's the thing. They're baiting and switching on you, using this woman. She's very sympathetic. I mean, everybody can feel badly for the guy that comes home and says, "I lost my job. I don't have a job." They don't tell you about all the chemicals emitted from the tipples. They don't tell you about all the lovely things that leach out of the ground from these underground mines. On my farm, we had two wells. Had two wells. One of the wells started venting methane gas. Nobody can understand why. I mean, it wasn't like they had been fracking any time recently, before the well went bye-bye. They run a camera down the well pipe, and they keep going and going and going and going. Eventually, they run into the number one mine shaft from Bluestone Industries. One of the shots had ruptured the basin between the water reserve that the well was tapped into and the mine shaft and flooded the mine shaft. Of course, that started venting methane, and the people who came to look at the well really didn't appreciate anybody smoking within 500 feet of the building. They couldn't cap it because it would build up too much pressure, and they were afraid it would cause a slight problem. So, as we talk about this, war on coal and the war on the working families, nobody wants to understand that the war on the working families has always been going on, and it's not limited to just coal miners. It's the coal miners, it's the truck drivers, it's the security officers that work at these places, it's their families, it's the people who work at other companies, it's people who work in completely different sectors of the labor market. I mean, the average miner makes, I think it's like $58,000 a year. That's pretty good here. I mean, it's not great by most standards in most places. That's pretty good here. I mean, that affords you a lot. Okay, but you look at the other jobs in this area. I mean, you have Walmart, and I think they pay nationally $8.15 an hour, and you have McDonald's, which pays like $7.50 an hour, and you have all these different things that they really don't pay anything. But you talk to a miner, they're making, if they're a union, they're making $15-20 an hour. But outside of the really, really high-end jobs, I mean, I'm talking doctors and lawyers, you're not making much of anything because the economy can't support it. Why? Because West Virginia is a lot like Detroit was. Flint, different places in Michigan. It wasn't statewide, but a lot of these places, they got a car making plant, and that was it, man. You went to work as a you went to work as a car maker, man. Your granddaddy worked for Ford, you worked for Ford, and your son would work for Ford. And that's what they've done here. The problem is, when free trade came around and the jobs went overseas because it was cheaper for Ford and Chevrolet and Chrysler to make everything overseas, these plants started shutting down, the jobs went away, and there was nothing there to fill the void. And that's not a federal government problem, that's your local government failing. The same thing has happened here, basically. Coal is going away. I mean, coal has always had its ups and downs. Now coal is going away, and it's not going to come back. They're saying now that by 2030, that coal will have rebounded. I honestly think by 2030, we won't be mining anymore. And I don't have a problem with that. You see, while my education might not be the best, I still have one. And that is another aspect of this war on the working families in many areas. Education is not important here. I have known more dropouts in this state than I knew in my graduating, in my entire high school. I mean, hell, I know more dropouts here in less than a decade than I knew in 20 years of living in the other places I've lived. In my high school class of 100, there was 3 dropouts. 3. In my first year of living here, I met entire families that were high school dropouts. I mean, we're talking 4 brothers, and probably 20 kids between them, all dropouts. They dropped out to go to work in the mines. They were intelligent enough to get working in a mine. They dropped out, went to work in the mine. If they couldn't work in a mine, they just took whatever job they could find. But the problem is, the grandkids, the ones that didn't think working in a mine was good enough for them, they took off. They hightailed it. They bolted. They don't come back. They might come back to visit, but that's about it, unless they can't make it outside of here. But the point I was getting at before I got sidetracked was, West Virginia did the same thing that a lot of places like Detroit and Flint did. They built up the entirety of their economy on one thing. You cannot do that. But that is not a federal government failing. That is a state failing. That is the people you elected at a state level. Unfortunately, West Virginia hasn't been sold out in the way that this ad portrays. West Virginia got sold out a long time ago to the coal companies. to the Rockefellers and different ones. Now, I'm not saying that Mr. Rockefeller, who is retiring from his position, is to blame, but his family is. So, there you have it. West Virginia failed to diversify their economy, and now we're stuck with bullshit ads like that.